All right, maybe it's time to get into it, shall we? Welcome everybody to, I think this is episode 3 of What's New at Desmos. Super excited for you all to be here joining us today to hear about some of the awesome things Desmos has been working on. I am Isaiah Genece, one of the product managers here at Desmos. I'm joined by Andrew and Robin, two of our interaction developers, graph wizards that are going to take us through some of the awesome features we have recently released for you all. At any time during today's webinar, feel free to drop a question in the chat or use the Q&A function, and we will happily answer your question. And as always, I'm going to plug the Desmos Help Center, help.desmos.com, to look more into any of the things that we discuss here today or any of the past features that we have released. All right, so we have 2 exciting features to talk about today that I'll say are our main courses, student name edits and duplicating expressions. Before that, as always, I like to have a little appetizer for you all. So 2 fun features that we released over the last couple months that I would love to share with you. The first being recent feedback for students. Let me reshare. So for those of you who leave feedback for students and are not sure whether or not that feedback has been seen, we've released a new notification that lets you know, you being the student, know when that feedback has occurred and links you directly to said feedback. I have a pre-written feedback message here for a student that happens to be me. I'll hit send on it. And when I pop over to my student homepage, you'll see not only our usual icon, but also a brand new pop-up that shows me a link that will take me directly to the activity with that recently left feedback. If I dismiss this notification and I refresh, the notification comes right back, taking every opportunity to make sure that students are reviewing the feedback that has been left for them to help guide them in their thinking. Great, that is one thing. The second thing I would like to show you all is some fun new updates to card sort. So if you recall the previous card sort design, we had groups organized under a gray group header that counted the number of cards, and that also is where the expand collapse behavior was contained. You'll see now that if I make a group, all cards gather under the top card in that group, and I can expand and collapse using this new button, and I get this awesome animation. I'm going to add more cards just so we can see how great this animation really is. Look at that. And we have some awesome ghost cards here that'll show up to show you a true stack of sorted cards. And you can drag any card sort group by the top card to help you sort of organize the various cards that you have. And sure, maybe we can post a link to the previous editions of What's New. If someone on the support team wouldn't mind digging those up and maybe dropping those in the chat. We've already got one. Thank you so much. Great. So hopefully that has whet your appetite for exciting Desmos features. Those are the things I wanted to show you today. And with that, before I do that, actually, I will address a quick question. You have to identify in some way what the header card is. So right now, any card sort group there is a top card will be joined in any card sort group. And basically any card that is the top card of the group will have this slightly increased size, and all the cards will gather below it. We have seen some user feedback about being able to decide what card is a header card, and we are investigating that. I think I appreciate all that feedback, and we're looking into that in future designs. Perhaps I'll give it one more second for any other card sort or recent feedback questions. Did you make nice fonts for the text and colors? These fonts were made by our awesome design and curriculum teams, and there may be some more to come on card sort styles later on. Stay tuned. With that, I think I will hand it over to Robin, who's going to walk us through one of our main courses today, student name edits. Robin, take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. Oh no, my computer doesn't have screen sharing permissions. 1 second.
Robin's just building the suspense here. We're just really have to wait for it to appreciate this monumental change in ability to work with activities in teacher.desmos.com.
That's exactly right. The longer we wait, the more exciting it becomes. I think she's going to try to rejoin as a co-host, and hopefully that should help us get off to the races here.
All right, sorry about that, everybody. Let's try that one more time. Thanks for reading
that.
All right, the thing that I am really excited to share today is that we can now sort dashboards by last name. And I'm so excited for this feature, even though now as an interaction developer, I don't need to use it because I just remember the pain of trying to enter grades for Desmos so well from last year. Yeah, this is a really, really exciting. You can now probably enter assignment grades 5 times faster than you were able to when all the names were not sorted in the way that you wanted them to be. But you'll notice that now that I've sorted these names by last name, like what if students don't have their last names entered into their accounts or their names don't accurately reflect what is in your gradebook? When you click these 3 dots, the drop-down menu now appears, and this new feature says edit name for this class, so I can add a last name or last initial for Andrew, and you'll notice that it'll automatically rearrange Andrew so that his last initial starts K first, and then the same goes for Isaiah. And now you can see that my roster is beautifully arranged. And this can be extra helpful. One of the first uses that came to my mind was I once taught a class with 2 students who had the identical first and last names, and it was just so much fun trying to figure out who was who every time I was working in a Desmos roster. And so now you can also, enter in a nickname that they go by. So, whoops. In this case, I can change my own name to Red, just in case that is a name I go by, or there's another Robin in the class and I don't want to have to mix them up. And these nicknames or renamings also show up underneath once you have anonymized, so they will persist. And there are 2 really important things to note with being able to change student names. One is that these name changes persist per class and not per activity. So once I've changed or added last initials to Isaiah and Andrew's names for this one activity, I don't need to do it again every single time I assign a new activity for this class. That change is saved. And the second important thing to remember is that students can see how their teachers have changed their names. So let's see, if I share my roster here, you'll notice that it is automatically updated, saying that I've added the last name G to Isaiah and K to Andrew. Let's see, and here, my first name has also now changed to Red. This little I indicates that a name change has been made. And one really handy thing is that you can restore the student name. So if you accidentally change something, want to revert it, there's a restore button. You can go ahead and click on it and it will revert that name back to what it was. From the student perspective, let's see. Oh, let me just change my name one more time. I'm gonna go with Red Panda, so it's just something very obviously different. And if I go back to a student activity page, So let's say I'm now a student logging into this activity. It says, welcome back, Red Panda. So this is going to be the name that the teacher has changed, but notice that at the top, it still says Robin Ray Lamb, which would be the name that is associated with the student's account. So this is one place where a student will be able to see where their name has been changed. A second place is if they go into their account settings, once they're in an activity, then here it says, your teacher has changed your name to Red Panda for this particular class. Students also have the ability to change their own name to reflect what they wanted to. And with that, I think it's back to Isaiah.
That is awesome. Thanks so much, Robin. I'm super excited about this feature. I hope you all are too. And for anyone who uses Google Classroom, this also works for those names. Any edit name that you make in a Desmos roster will remain updated, even if you refresh your Google Classroom roster. And thank you to the support team who dropped the support article about editing student names into the chat. Thanks very much. Okay, that was one. Who's ready for another? I am going to pass it on to, that's right, Andrew, who's going to take us through duplicating expressions in the graphing calculator. Andrew?
Oh, that is wonderful. Hello, folks. I am super excited to be doing a live graph build. I'm going to build a graph that will plot one variable inequalities, but like my secret goal underneath is to demonstrate some of the new features and abilities that we have. To my co-hosts, if I'm talking too fast or if I forget one of my goals, like jump in, ask questions, all that sort of good stuff here. Let me minimize all my Zoom windows so that I can edit more fluidly. All right, here we go. I want to plot one variable inequalities, so something like x is less than 3. I don't need my whole graph paper for this. I just want one axis here, so I'll update those settings like so. And then I'm going to think to myself, like, what are the parts of this expression that I want to be able to quickly change if I'm going to be authoring lots of different images for this or different graphs that I'll have the students staring at. And so I'm going to give myself a folder. And I just realized that I used a shortcut key there to get myself a folder. In the plus option, you can click folder. You can type the word folder, or also there is a keyboard shortcut for tons of different things. And I use the one to add a folder, which is somewhere here. There we go. Add a folder, Control-Alt-F. That's one keyboard shortcut I use all the time. That's not the same one. Control-Alt-F.
How do you bring up that menu that gives you the shortcuts?
Ooh, great question. That was Control / the one with the question mark on it. It just gives you all of the shortcuts available in the graph window, whether you're on Windows or on Mac. A bunch of different ways to more easily navigate the graph experience. Lots of accessibility stuff hidden in this info as well. Okay, so I'm thinking here about the things that I want to be able to change about this. First thing, I'm probably going to want to change what number is actually being compared to in my inequality. So I'll plot myself a point that I can use to pick what that value should be. I think I'll use a step size of 1 just so that I can always hit the integers exactly. But when I actually plot a graph for this inequality, I don't want this movable point. I'm going to want either an open circle or a closed circle. So I'll get myself another folder here for the inequality. And I basically want this same coordinate, v comma 0, but I don't want the dragging ability. So I'm going to do Control-C to copy this expression, just highlighting everything and copy. And then I can paste it over here and I get myself the same coordinate structure. If I long press on the icon, I can disable the drag. And that gives me an option to have a closed circle or an open circle. I feel like that's going to be too small for me, so let's just make that a variable size, make a slider for it. I'm just going to adjust this, and yeah, let's say somewhere around here for my dot. So the way that I'm picturing this is when I am constructing the graph myself, I'll have this folder for author setup turned on. When it's available to students, I'll just hide that, and so they get the nice dot picture, but I can still manipulate it nice and easy like. But I will need to decide between an open circle and a closed circle. I can do that manually here by clicking into the style and switching back and forth. But I'm going to want to have that as a graph toggle. So let's do is strict. And I'll use that for if it's a strict inequality or if it could possibly be equal. And my brain is going too fast and my hands started moving. I just duplicated an expression really quickly. Let me back out and try that again. I want this same point with all the same styling options that I just used. But if I just copy and paste, I'm going to get a different color and it's movable and I don't get all the style stuff. So under this wrench icon, I can get into edit list mode. I press that and I have the ability to duplicate my point like so. In the same mode, if I just click once on the icon on the left, it pops up all the style options. I don't have to long press on it like I do if I'm outside of edit list mode. Just a long press to hold that open. If I'm inside, I can just click once and it pops up real nice and quick for me. So that's a lovely time saver.
I think another lovely time saver is, what if you're not in edit mode and you still want to open that menu and you really hate that long press?
Oh, that's a great question, Robin. Thank you for asking it. I would love to be able to just click this and open up the style menu. But right now, if I click, it just hides the point, which is also a very useful thing to do sometimes. So I don't want to lose that ability. If I hold down the Shift key and then click, one click, pop it pops. So real fast and easy to edit your styles with Shift press, Shift press. Good stuff there. Okay, but I actually, I want to make one of these undefined if my strict inequality is, if it's a strict inequality versus if it's not. I think I've done this correctly. So if it's a strict inequality, that means I'm not allowing it to be equal. So actually that's the open dot and closed dot in the other case. All right, I've got my point for the boundary. Since this is an inequality, I'm also going to want to have some sort of direction on this. So let me use is greater than to decide which direction this is going to go. If it's equal to 1, then I want to shade all of the values that are greater than this number here. And for that, I'm going to use the same duplication trick to get all of my styles brought over into a new point. And I'm going to add in a point at 9, 0, throw that into a list with the brackets. And then in the style options, I can turn on a line. And I can connect those dots and have, kind of like fake shading appear on the graph. I can scale that up, probably half the size of the dot, looks pretty good. And I can change the opacity. I think actually I want it to live behind the dot so that I get a nice white circle for that open dot version of things. And that looks pretty good. It is missing arrows at the very end. So let me get myself a little helper. I will build an arrow out of 3 points. The x coordinates will be -1, 0, and 1. And I'll use those pieces for the y coordinates. There we go. And then just a little bit of flavor and sizing. A little bit more open. Okay, I think I like that for an arrow. And of course, the arrow is going to live at 9, 0. Connect the dots on all of that. And just match it to everything else because I did not use duplicate this time around. All right, so I've got shading that I like. I have the arrowhead, but it doesn't actually respond to this is greater than element here. So let me get a conditional on that. If I have this as 0, if I actually want to be shading less than, I really want all of these values to swap around. And I would have to subtract arrow here. So I'm going to throw that into a curly brace. I'm going to have the condition, if I'm greater than, I want to use a +9, otherwise use the -9. And I can use that here and there. And then when I switch this, it flips it around. I forgot about that subtraction, so I'll go back to here. And in the case that I'm greater than, I'll use a +1. Otherwise, I'll multiply by -1. And that should get me the flip that I'm looking for. Okay, so far I have built myself a graph for a single inequality, and I can adjust it, and that is beautiful and lovely. But what if I want more than one inequality? There's a lot of expressions here, and I don't really want to type it all again just to get a second inequality. I've got great news, folks. In this edit list mode, the same way that I duplicated my point earlier, I can duplicate an entire folder. Boom, I did it. Let me collapse these guys. And now I have a second draw inequality folder. And I can go through and I can just update my variable names so that I can have control over the second piece. And then I could duplicate this whole folder, but I'm actually gonna just duplicate individual expressions. We did not used to be able to duplicate sliders, but now we can. And I love that just so much. It keeps it nice and organized, just brings a copy of it right below where the original one was. Just throw myself a 2 onto these pieces, and then I can adjust a second inequality graph. Lickety
Andrew,
split.
there's a request to see a duplicated folder again.
Oh, I would love to show a duplicated folder again. I can get myself 3 inequalities by going to this edit list icon, looking for that copy image over on the right side of the expression. Same way that I can copy an individual line, if I go to the folder line and I hit duplicate, pop, there goes a 3rd inequality folder ready for me to go through and manipulate however I would like. You know, this is nice. I do like being able to manipulate the 2 inequality graphs here, but I would kind of like them to live not on the same x-axis. Well, let me hit save before I do anything else. And I just happen to have in my saved graphs a double number line plot. And this graph I have built previously so that I can control where my number lines are going to live, just kind of the vertical positioning of all of that stuff. And boy, wouldn't it be great if I could get all that inequality work I just did into this graph.
You got to be careful. I was just going to say, if you do that, you're going to erase everything, but no.
Yeah, it used to be one way that you could bring graphs into a new graph here is to paste the URL. So here I've got just a plain old graph. On my clipboard, I have the URL of the inequality thing that I just built. If I paste into this graph, I get all of those expressions in this new graph that I'm working in. So if I go back to my double number line and I put myself on a new line here, let me just make a note real fast so you can see what's on my clipboard. If I hit paste, I get that URL. But if I do it in an expression line, poof, it imports all of the expressions that I just built in that other link. And now I can go through and I can see like, okay, well, this number line has Y number line 2. So I can use that to adjust where I want to draw each of these things. Number line 1, just plop that for the first piece. And for the second one, I want it to live at number line number 2. And there we go. I've got myself a beautiful graph that has 2 independent number lines, 2 inequality graphs. I've got control over them. I'm looking at my expression list on the side, and boy, I've got a lot of folders here, and like they're all open right now. And that's not super great for like neatness and compactness. So I've got one more trick just to kind of clean things up and to feel like I've finished with my project. If I hold down Control Shift Up, nope, that's not the key. Alt Shift Up, that's not it either. Wait a second, I just did this. What's my fancy shortcut?
Command.
Command. No, that's not it either. What's going on here? There is now a brand new command to close all of your folders at once. And Alt-Shift-Up should have worked for me. Alt-Shift-Up. Oh. Okay, well, I don't know what I was pressing before, but now if I hold down Alt-Shift and Up, it closes all my folders. Similarly, Alt-Shift-Down will open all of my folders. Just a quick way to clean up your graph and have all of those folders collapse down or expand out. Speaking of nice things in the expression list, there is actually a way to search your expression list. This has been there for a little bit, but it is kind of hidden. If you just hit Control F, it pops up a search this graph feature, and I can do things like, hey, show me Y number line 2. And it will filter down to just the expressions that have
Actually, Andrew,
that statement inside.
while you're looking at that, there's a question about what that plus sign is doing when you added the second number line and we're moving it up and down to the next. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Let me do that here. So without this plus, this v2 comma 0 statement, it's just, sitting at that point. I guess my value of v2 is -6. You can add points together, and it just independently moves the x coordinate or the y coordinate. And so in this case, I had a variable y number line 2, and so it was just putting that in this slot here, y number line 2, and it shifted it up to where I had defined that second number line. Yeah, you can add to points. You can add to a point list. So this is a list of 1 point and 2 points. It just shifts everything horizontally and vertically. I think that concludes my live build of this double inequality number line. We'll find some way to put a link somewhere for folks to check things out. I will pause for questions or comments before passing it back to Isaiah.
All right. Sounds like everything was well understood, and that doesn't surprise me. While we were looking at Andrew's graph build, you may have noticed the little trophy icon on the toolbar, and that is the last shout out that I'm going to give today. The second annual Desmos art contest ends this Saturday, January the 15th. If you have not already submitted some cool graph art, please, in the graphing calculator or in any of our Desmos sites, they'll take you to a link explaining the art contest, as well as giving you an opportunity to submit your own graph for consideration in that contest. Awesome. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Andrew, for walking us through these incredible Desmos features. Andrew has just dropped the final build of his graph in the chat. Thank you very much. Maybe I'll give it one more minute for any questions about any of the things we discussed today. Let's give it a second, see if the chat fills up with anything. I got one question about showing correctness in card sort. The question is, I'm seeing show correctness for the first time. Is there a way to turn it off? That correctness checkbox can be turned on and off at any time. There's no way to completely remove that icon from your screen space, but you can turn off show correctness at any time just by clicking that checkbox.
Worth calling out for show correctness on card sorts, that's on the teacher side in the teacher dashboard. You would still need to communicate to your students if they've got cards where you expected them to put them.
Correct. Thank you, Andrew. All right, then. Seems like we have no more questions. Then I'll just give a final thank you to our presenters, to our Desmos support team for supporting us up here, and to all of you for joining us today for episode 3 of What's New at Desmos, Return of the Desmos. Hope you'll join us next time for when we'll have even more exciting features to talk about. Thank you all for coming. Stay safe. Have a great evening.